Chosen trigger. Betrayed by a best friend. Longtime friend steals his idea, partner, or position. I used to believe loyalty was unbreakable between men who had built their dreams shoulder to shoulder, and for most of my early life I lived by that code. In my late 20s I met Daniel, someone who seemed cut from the same cloth as me, the kind of man you could trust with your life, and we shared more than drinks at midnight and shoulders to lean on. We shared visions, goals, and a burning urge to make something bigger than ourselves. So we built a small company from scratch. No investors, no safety nets, just long hours in a cramped apartment filled with whiteboards, the smell of burnt coffee, and the sound of us hammering at keyboards, like the work itself could fuel us forever. And I trusted him fully, enough to let him handle the finances while I put my soul into the creative side. Enough to give him my ideas without even thinking about protecting them. Because he wasn't just a business partner. He was my brother in all but blood. I told him secrets about my childhood. We celebrated holidays together. His mother sent me cards, and I would have bet everything I owned that he would never turn against me. But I would lose that bet in the most humiliating way possible. It began quietly, like the first hint of smoke before you smell the fire. Emails started slipping past me, meetings where I wasn't invited. Whispering phone calls that ended when I walked into the room. Yet I'd pushed away my doubts, because trust had been our foundation. Until one Friday afternoon, when everything I thought was solid cracked wide open. I arrived at the office to find strangers sitting at our desks, boxes labelled with my work piled by the door, and Daniel standing there in a tailored suit I had never seen him wear, holding the contract from a major corporation with my designs printed across the top. My ideas, my months of sketches, mock-ups, prototypes, all sold without my knowledge, without my consent. And in that moment, my world went silent, except for the pounding in my chest. He told me calmly that the company was his now, that my name had been too small to attract real money, that I should be grateful he negotiated me out before things got too complicated. And then, like a knife with a twist, he added that they were hiring him as the division head, while I would receive nothing. Not even a mention. My work stripped from me, as if it had never been mine. I walked out with my box of personal things, but left a part of myself in that room. The part that believed in friendship without conditions. And for weeks I sank so deep, I barely recognized my own reflection. There were days I didn't get out of bed, nights when I stared at the ceiling, hearing the echoes of his smug voice, the betrayal feeding a darkness in my chest. I stopped answering calls. I avoided people. I lost weight without noticing. And even the city outside my window seemed colder, the air heavy with the scent of wet concrete after a storm. But somewhere under all that grief, a different force began to stir, a quiet rage that was sharper than pain, a determination that whispered, "Take it back, take everything back." So I began plotting in silence. In the early hours, I researched every detail of the deal Daniel made, every contact he had, every weakness in the new company's structure. And I started reconnecting with people I had met over the years. Engineers who admired my work, small investors who had once shown interest but were turned away, even competitors who respected my designs enough to share insider knowledge. And I listened, asked questions, nodded while they spoke, never revealing the storm I was preparing. When I visited industry events, I kept my voice calm and my eyes sharp, noting who was aligned with Daniel, who complained about him, who doubted his leadership. I spent months building a network of allies who had no idea they were part of a larger plan, and every day I added another piece to the chessboard until I could see the whole game laid out before me. By then, I had rebuilt myself physically. I trained hard, ran at sunrise to clear the fog from my mind, replaced the hollow ache with disciplined focus. But the fire never dimmed. It burned brighter with each passing week, fed by the image of Daniel standing in that suit, believing he had won. And I pushed myself harder, because I knew revenge was not about striking in anger. It was about timing, about hitting so precisely they never recover. I launched my own company quietly, under a different name, backed by the people who once ignored me and now saw potential, because my prototypes had doubled in quality. My designs were sharper, cleaner, revolutionary even. 2 years later, opportunity presented itself like a gift wrapped in steel. The corporation Daniel had sold my ideas to announced a press conference to reveal their next big product line. And thanks to my connections, I secured an invitation. I walked in wearing a sharp suit, unseen by most, until they pulled the cover off their new flagship model. And there it was, my original design, nearly identical to what I had created years ago, only cheaper, lighter, and disappointingly flawed, because Daniel had cut corners to save costs. The room was filled with journalists, industry leaders, and investors. Dozens of cameras pointed at the stage. I waited until their lead engineer began explaining the product's innovations, then raised my hand and asked a question loud enough to draw everyone's attention. Can you explain why this design matches word for word the patent filed under my name 3 years ago? Silence dropped like a stone. The engineer froze, Daniel standing off to the side went pale, and whispers surged through the crowd. I stepped forward, handed the nearest journalist a folder with documented proof of my work, patent records, time-stamped files, emails between Daniel and me, detailing the creation process, all of it so undeniable that within minutes half the room was buzzing with the story. Daniel tried to speak, fumbling for words, but someone in the audience shouted, "Is this true?" And cameras swung toward him as he stammered, caught in his own web. I let him drown there in front of everyone, each passing second eroding his credibility as headlines began forming in the minds of every reporter present. That moment was the climax of 2 years of silent preparation. A single strike that shattered the pedestal he had built himself on. And I walked out of that building with the knowledge that the industry now saw him for what he was, a thief. And that his future would be plagued by the shadow of my name. But revenge alone was never going to be enough. I wanted something greater. Something that proved the betrayal had not destroyed me, but transformed me. I took the surge of momentum from that public exposure and expanded my company on a mission to mentor young inventors like I once had been, teaching them how to protect their work, how to navigate contracts, how to spot snakes even when they wear friendly faces. Within 3 years, we were not just profitable but respected, our designs winning awards, our ethics praised in articles, and the people I worked with became the kind of family Daniel had pretended to be, bound not by blood but by shared integrity. Looking back, I realized the pain had been the crucible that burned away my naivety and left behind something sharper, more resilient. And in my quietest moments, I almost feel grateful for the lesson, though I will never forgive him. Some nights, I drive past the old office building we once shared, see the lights on in rooms where strangers now work, and I think about the man I was, the man who trusted too easily. But now I am someone else entirely. A man who learned that trust is built slowly, guarded carefully, and never given to those who prove they can destroy it. And if this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe to this channel.